Happy birthday to Mozart. That is not the topic for today, but quite a guy. And if you've never seen Amadeus, that's an enjoyable watch. But yeah, off topic there. Go listen to some Mozart today. Celebrate that dude. I don't know how old he would have been turning, but very old. Almost certainly setting some records. Uh, the actual topic is imposter syndrome, which I wonder if he ever dealt with. I'm not going to base anything off the Amadeus movie, but go watch it if you are bored in your attempts to celebrate Mr. Mozart. But imposter syndrome is a very real thing, and it's a very real topic in the mental health field. I believe that I have discussed it more with other therapists than I have with the clients that I work with. It's pretty rampant, I feel like. And I don't feel like that's exclusive to the therapy field. I think this field has a tendency for people to share more. And especially if you're in a situation like I am, where you have a good community of 20 plus therapists that you engage with regularly who are honest and not at each other's throats trying to take clients and business ideas, which is a subsect of this career. If you have a healthy group of people, they'll talk about things. And the amount of imposter syndrome that I hear is pretty rampant. And especially with students, all the students I work with, well, I shouldn't say all of them, a lot of them have some version of it, and myself included when I was a student and my classmates. It's just an interesting thing to be put in a position to help someone with their health and be like, well, I'm a student, and this person's trusting me with their time and sometimes money if you're at certain sites. My site was free, but they're investing their time, and that's a very valuable resource too. And hoping that this student can help them. And I sit there and wonder, well, I also hope I can help you. I guess we'll see what happens. It's a normal thing. And man, I'll link it in the description here. There's a pretty good, in my opinion, YouTube video on imposter syndrome. It was a TED talk, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the guy's CEO of some company. And he talks about it just kind of always being there, but then you'll hear other people talk about imposter syndrome as just a sign of lack of confidence. And I think it's a complicated topic. Um, and there's different facets. There's maybe one side that says I'm not good enough for this, and I don't know enough. Not I'm not experienced enough, and I think that type of imposter syndrome does start to solve itself when you build confidence. If you've done something 100 times, why would you think you can't do it again? If you've done it 1,000 times, now at that point there might just be something getting in the way because clearly you can do it, and you have the evidence for it. Versus this other side of imposter syndrome that maybe feeds on less of a um, adjustable performance side and more of a I don't deserve this or this why me or there are better people out there. And it's like that can all be true, but that doesn't discredit your right to be in that space. So we assess ourselves differently than other people. As far as I know, there's not a term for imposter syndrome projected on other people. If someone thinks that I'm not adequate for it, that's not an imposter syndrome projection. I get to decide how I experience that. If I agree, like, yeah, I'm not able to do that, or I can be like, you don't really know what you're talking about. I can do that. So it's a uniquely personal experience, but a very shared experience at the same time, which much of life, I guess, fits into that category. So, imposter syndrome. Is there a way to beat it? I do think confidence is a very big key to that, and repetition and doing something very well over and over and over and over again. But there's also an element of expectation where you take this YouTube video, for example. The point of my Monday videos is just to talk about stuff. They're not performative. They're not aiming at a certain viewer count or trying to get subscribers or trying to get likes. These perform pretty widely. I mean, I get low views anyway, but even within the low, they perform widely in that spectrum. And whatever. That's not the goal of this. So I don't come into this space with imposter syndrome from a YouTube perspective. The temptation might be in deeper psychological topics that I talk about. These are more processing thoughts, but some weeks I get a little bit more focused on data and research and what the field looks like and what we know from a learned perspective over time. And sometimes those are a little bit scarier, where there's the reflection piece of like, do I know for sure what I want to say? Is that for sure accurate? I want to make sure I say the right thing. Have I reviewed the research since I've been saying this? Because that stuff changes. People latch onto a statistic that maybe even is real and it existed, but we've come a long way since then. And we know more about the topic. Do you refresh that, or do you just learn that information once and move on? And how often should you reflect on it? I don't think you should look up the same research weekly, but yearly, every 5 years. When do you update it? How niche is your topic? So I do think there is a connection with imposter syndrome and overall confidence and preparedness for something. But if you've experienced it before and you're listening, you also know that that's not the full picture, because we can have all the evidence in the world and still feel like an imposter. I don't know that there's necessarily a cure for that, but I also still wonder how useful that even is, because there's a level of it that rings similar to survivorship bias. Oh, this, why me? Why am I the one here? That personal survivorship bias. There's also the survivorship bias on the other side, where somebody, gets really famous or they get really wealthy, and it actually didn't have a lot to do with skill and ability and knowledge. They got lucky with that. And that doesn't discount that they did it, but it does discount advice that they might give. So, this happens to someone who wins the lottery. Are they really going to have good advice on money? So just the fact that someone has money doesn't mean that we should take their advice on how to get it. And that's true of anything. So there's some levels of imposter syndrome where it's okay to look at ourselves and be like, this isn't just about a right to it. It is a question of like, did I actually earn this? How did I get this? Is what I'm saying applicable to other people? Something I reflect on a lot, where it's okay to lack confidence sometimes if you don't have experience with the thing, but it's also okay to stand your ground and speak to something that you know to be true and that you do have experience in. So, one of the things that I would encourage anyone who is dealing with imposter syndrome to consider would be to find people that you trust and inquire about their experience with it and ask if they've felt it. Especially if you can find people who are dealing with it in the same domain that you are. So, therapists to other therapists, maybe musicians to other musicians, and in any category you can think of within your field, within your hobbies, within your overall interests. If you can connect that directly with you, there's a relatable aspect to it that's, well, relatable, which oftentimes when things are relatable, they're easier to connect to. But ask people about it. Do you experience imposter syndrome? And I personally would love to hear that. Anyone who's watching who wants to take time to comment, if you have dealt with imposter syndrome, what that's been like. Did you overcome it? Did it go away? Did you quit the thing as a way to cope with it? My experience with that is it happens in my field, and I'll have moments where I'm sitting with people and it just dawns on me like, oh, I'm doing therapy, like this extra pulled away. You can call it somewhat dissociative, looking down on yourself. Like, I remember before I even decided I wanted to do this field, and now I'm actually sitting and helping someone with their mental health. Like, it's a big deal. And I think about that with music, which is important in my life, and playing music. And this past weekend being on stage with a microphone and a guitar and thinking this is crazy. It's what high school me wanted to do, but then early college me was like, it's probably not going to happen. I'm not going to have much experience in my life progressing in my music, and if I do, it's going to be very personal. But here I am on a Saturday night playing a set like I wanted to do in high school, but it doesn't look the same, and it's not quite imposter syndrome, but there's this removed feeling. And there is some of that that comes up on the imposter side of like, Do I have the right to be here? Am I good enough to be here? That's me a lot with my singing. I don't feel like it's good enough. I don't really struggle with that with guitar, but again, to my experiences years ago, I've been playing guitar now for 16 years, longer than I haven't. I'm confident. I know how to do it, and that's from overtime, 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 overtime. Singing, I've been doing that my whole life, but for fun. And only in the past 2 years have I tried to do it more seriously, put some more effort into it. That feels scary still, but the more that I put the experience in, the more I feel better. So most of my experience with imposter syndrome is confidence based, and do it again and again and again. And a lot of that for me has come from being hyper fixated on things as a kid. I got really into like magic and like card tricks, like magician stuff. A lot of card tricks and coin tricks and stuff like that, but mostly cards. I got very into Rubik's cubes for a while, getting like 100%ing video games and stuff like that, and music for a bit. There'd be these things that I would just want to do all of it 100%. And through that, I learned that pretty much you can do anything if you just practice it a lot. Um, my Rubik's cube experience, like wanting to solve it within a certain amount of time, I know other people can do it, so I was like, I'll just do it. I'll figure it out, and you eventually get there. So I think for me, in the back of my mind, I always know that anything that I'm struggling with doing well or doing correctly in that imposter syndrome, my go-to first solution, well, I have kind of two go-to things to help me. One is this even accurate? This imposter feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough for this. I can't do this. Is that even true? Starting with that. And the I'm not able to do this thing is always a lie, because my belief around that is people can do anything they want with little exception. We can figure out how to do it. So if it's ever that issue, I'm like, no, I can figure it out, but maybe I don't know it now. And I need to, and that's why I'm feeling imposter syndrome, because it's accurate. It's like, oh, yeah, I don't know that. So I need to study it and get better. So asking if the thoughts are true that are telling me I'm not good enough or I don't know something. And then the second piece I look at is, can I just choose to improve this? And if the answer is yes, then it just falls on me to make the time to do it. And then I'll get stressed or anxious if I choose not to improve at something that especially for work, that I know I need to get better at. There are things in life that I don't need to get better at certain hobbies or other activities where it's like, I don't, there's no need for me to get better at it. So I either need to stop doing it and or keep it here and accept that this is my current limit. It's not my capacity limit. I got other more important things to do. Or decide, you know what, I am going to actually pursue this, and I'm going to hit this point that I'm hearing I'm not good enough for. So managing expectations within that and knowing what you're capable of doing and what your personal limitations are, it's a big factor. So, imposter syndrome, you're definitely not alone if you're feeling that. You're actually incredibly not alone if you're feeling that. Talk to people you trust about it. Um, Reach out to me about it. I love talking about it because people are very capable, and anytime I hear people being down on themselves about their abilities, everyone's way more capable than they act like they are. At least most people. Some people are a little arrogant and ego filled, but most people can do way more than they give themselves credit for, and they often are doing more than they give themselves credit for. We just personally limit ourselves, or we have so many negative people in our lives telling us we're not good enough. And either way, those things need to be removed. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on imposter syndrome. Important topic, very real thing, and it's surmountable. You can get over it. It's just a mountain to climb. Sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's easier, but that's all it is. It's something that you climb, and every step up a mountain, every step towards a goal is a step closer in that direction, and you really will only get closer if you just want to. A lot of work and effort, maybe so, but you'll get there. So, yeah, those are my thoughts today. Imposter syndrome. Go listen to Mozart. Enjoy your day. If you're interested in anything therapy related, topics, services, if you need a therapist, reach out in the comments. I'll hook you up if you're in Kansas City or Missouri. I can work with you. If you're elsewhere, I can likely find someone. That's always a fun challenge if I can get you connected outside the area or even within the area that I'm in, because I'm not going to be the best fit for everyone. So, um, yeah, reach out if you'd like. Enjoy your Monday. and I will talk to you all pretty soon.